Near-death experience reveals hidden black history. What Jesus showed will shock you. What if everything you thought you knew about history, about identity, about truth, was only part of the story? What if something powerful had been hidden for generations, waiting to be uncovered? My name is Emily Carter, and I never imagined I would be telling this story. But after what I experienced, I have no choice. On October 5th, 2023, my life changed forever. One moment, I was driving home after a long shift at the hospital, thinking about nothing more than a hot shower and a good night's sleep. The next moment, everything went black. A devastating car crash ripped me from the world I knew, and for exactly 6 minutes and 42 seconds, I was dead. But in those 6 minutes, I saw something beyond this world, something so profound, so shocking, that I could never go back to life as it was before. I saw Jesus, and what he revealed to me will challenge everything you've ever believed about history, about faith, about the destiny of an entire people. At first, I didn't even realize I was dead. One moment I was gripping the steering wheel, my heart pounding as I saw the blinding headlights of an oncoming car. The next moment, I was floating, weightless, watching the wreckage of my own body trapped inside a mangled car. There was no pain, no panic, just silence. Then a light. Not the flashing red and blue of emergency vehicles, but something warm, radiant, alive. It wasn't just light, it was presence. And in that presence, I heard a voice. A voice unlike any I had ever known. Strong yet gentle, powerful yet filled with love. "Emily, do not be afraid." I turned, and there he was, Jesus. The moment I saw him, I knew. My soul recognized him before my mind could even comprehend what was happening. His eyes that held the depth of eternity, looked into mine with a love so overwhelming that I fell to my knees. Every fear, every doubt, every question melted away in his presence. Then he reached out his hand. "Rise, my child." As soon as his fingers touched mine, a rush of energy surged through me, a warmth, a power unlike anything I had ever felt. It wasn't just light, it was life itself. And then he spoke the words that shook me to my core. "I have something to show you." Suddenly the world around us shifted. I was no longer floating above the crash site. I was somewhere else, somewhere, beyond time, beyond space. A place where truth was not just spoken, but revealed. And what I saw next would change everything. Before we continue, if you're as captivated as I was in this moment, take a second to like this video and subscribe to Bible Pathways. We explore deep, life-changing biblical revelations and uncover the hidden truths that connect faith, history, and prophecy. Don't miss what's coming next. Now let's continue. The ordinary day before the crash, it was supposed to be just another day. I woke up to the familiar hum of my alarm, the faint scent of fresh coffee drifting through the air. My husband had already left for work, leaving behind a note on the counter, just a simple "love you, see you tonight." I smiled, sipping my coffee as I mentally prepared for another long shift at the hospital. Being a nurse was more than just a job. It was a calling. Some nights were exhausting, some heartbreaking, but I had always believed that caring for people, helping them in their most vulnerable moments, was exactly where I was meant to be. That day had been no different. The hospital halls were busy but manageable. The steady beeping of monitors, the rustling of nurses moving from one room to another, the quiet conversations between doctors discussing patient care. It was the usual rhythm of life inside St. Luke's Hospital. By the time my shift ended, I was drained but content. I had spent hours checking vitals, administering medication, and offering words of comfort to patients who needed it. I had held the hand of an elderly woman recovering from surgery, listened to a young mother worry about her newborn in the NICU, and reassured a frightened teenager awaiting test results. It wasn't an extraordinary day, but that's the thing about life. You never realize when everything is about to change. I grabbed my coat, stepped outside into the cool night air, and inhaled deeply. The sky was dark, the streets were quiet, and a light drizzle had begun to fall, creating a misty glow under the streetlights. I slid into my car, turned the key in the ignition, and let out a slow exhale as I started my usual drive home. 5 more minutes. That's all that stood between me and the comfort of my bed. I turned on the radio, letting the soft hum of music fill the car as I drove through the familiar roads. The windshield wipers moved rhythmically, clearing the light rain. With each swipe, everything felt peaceful, until it didn't. A flash of blinding headlights, a car swerving out of control, the sudden gut-wrenching realization there was no way to stop it. My heart pounded. I gripped the steering wheel, slammed on the brakes, but it was too late. A deafening crash, a violent jolt. Then, nothing. Silence. Darkness. And in that moment, I left the world behind. The crash and entering the afterlife. The impact was instant. A violent force slammed into me, crushing metal against metal. My body lurched forward, and for a split second I was weightless, suspended in the chaos of shattering glass and screeching. Tires, then nothing. Silence, no sound, no pain, no fear. I expected the suffocating crush of panic, the sharp agony of broken bones, but none of it came. Instead, I felt light, detached, as if I were no longer bound to the wreckage, and then I saw it. My car, twisted, mangled, smoke curling from the hood. The windshield was shattered, fragments of glass catching the dim glow of the streetlights. And inside, slumped over the steering wheel, was me. I was looking at my own body. I hovered there, weightless, watching as flashing red and blue lights painted the wet pavement. Paramedics rushed toward the wreckage, voices urgent, movements precise. They were trying to save me, but I wasn't there anymore. A strange calm washed over me. Not the eerie, numbing kind, but a warmth, gentle, reassuring. It wrapped around me, dissolving every trace of fear. Then from nowhere, a light. Not from the flashing sirens, not from streetlights or headlights. This light wasn't from this world. It was warm, radiant, alive. It pulled at me, beckoning without. Force surrounding me with a presence so overwhelming, so peaceful, that I had no desire to resist. And then I heard it, a voice, powerful, yet tender, strong, yet filled with love. Emily, do not be afraid. At that moment, I knew. I wasn't. Just near death, I was beyond it. Meeting Jesus, the light grew brighter, but it wasn't harsh. It didn't burn or blind. It embraced me, wrapping me in a warmth so deep, so complete that I never wanted to leave. Then, through the radiance, I saw him. At first, I could only make out a figure, glowing with a brilliance beyond anything I had ever seen. But the moment my eyes met his, I knew. Jesus. It wasn't just recognition. It was something deeper, something unshakable. My soul knew him before my mind could even form the thought. His eyes held galaxies, wisdom stretching beyond time itself. And yet, they were filled with something even greater. Love. A love so infinite, so overwhelming, that it pulled every hidden fear, every doubt, every wound from the deepest parts of me and dissolved them in an instant. I fell to my knees, unable to stand in the presence of such holiness. Tears streamed down my face, not out of sadness, but because I had never felt so fully known, so fully seen. He reached out his hand. "Rise, my child." His voice wasn't just heard, it resonated through me, filling every part of my being with life itself. The moment his fingers touched mine, a surge of energy rushed through me. It wasn't just warmth, it was power. Pure, unfiltered, radiant life. Every question I had ever asked, every moment of doubt, every pain I had carried, it all vanished in that single touch. I felt weightless, as if I had been made new. And then he spoke again. "I have something to show you." Suddenly, the world around us shifted. The light remained, but the space we stood in changed. I wasn't in heaven, but I wasn't on earth either. I was somewhere else, somewhere beyond time, and what he was about to reveal would change everything. Jesus reveals the hidden truth. The space around us shifted. The light remained, but everything else faded, as if I were standing in the middle of eternity itself. Time didn't exist here, only truth. Jesus turned to me, his expression both tender and resolute. I have something to show you." The moment he spoke, the air shimmered. Images began to form before us, not just visions, but history itself unfolding like a story long forgotten. I saw civilizations rise, their people strong, wise, and filled with purpose. I saw vast cities, rich lands, thriving communities. Black, men and women walking with grace and authority, their presence radiating dignity and wisdom. These were not victims. These were leaders, scholars, warriors, priests. But then the vision darkened. The golden cities faded. Chains appeared where crowns once rested. The voices that once spoke wisdom were silenced. A force, dark and insidious, swept across the land, rewriting the story of an entire people. They were told they were nothing, Jesus said, his voice filled with sorrow. But the truth was stolen from them. As he spoke, the vision shifted again. I saw ships, wooden vessels cutting through the ocean waves. I saw men, women, and children shackled together, their faces filled with fear and confusion. Then, something even more heartbreaking. I saw those ships sinking, the ocean swallowing them whole, and with them their stories, their names, their truths, lost beneath the waves. But Jesus' voice carried over the sorrow. The world has buried them, but I am calling them back. At that moment I thought, of something happening right now, here in our time. I thought of the Slave Wrecks Project, the ongoing effort by archaeologists and historians to recover the lost history of these very people. Their work isn't just about finding sunken ships. It's about reclaiming identities, restoring stories that were meant to stay hidden. As Jesus led me forward, I had no idea that what he was about to show me was a truth buried, like sunken history, like forgotten names beneath the waves. The vision continued. I saw the names of the lost rising from the depths. I saw people waking up, realizing they were more than what they had been told. I saw a fire rekindled, a strength restored, and then Jesus looked at me. The time of awakening has come. The world may have tried to erase them, but their story was never truly lost, and soon the world would know the truth. Ancient civilizations and hidden knowledge, the vision unfolded before me like a story long forgotten. I stood in a city unlike anything I had ever seen. It was ancient yet untouched. Golden structures gleamed under a warm, radiant light. The streets were paved with intricate stonework, each pattern telling a story, each carving whispering wisdom from generations past. But what struck me most were the people. Black men and women, clothed in regal garments, walked with an air of authority and grace. Their presence was powerful, not because of wealth or status, but because of something deeper, an unshakable wisdom, a divine connection. They were scholars, leaders, warriors, and healers. They carried knowledge beyond their time, understanding the mysteries of the stars, the secrets of the earth, and the divine principles that governed all creation. This, Jesus said, is what was lost. His voice carried both sorrow and truth. The world had been told a different story, that these people had always been slaves, always been oppressed. But here, in this vision, I saw the truth. Before chains, before suffering, they were rulers, pioneers of knowledge, architects of civilization. Then the vision shifted. I saw dark forces creeping in, corrupting the knowledge, rewriting history. I saw their greatness being stripped away, their stories erased, their names forgotten. I saw the moment their chains were forged, not just of iron, but of deception. I thought of something happening in the world right now. The Slave Wrecks Project. Teams of researchers uncovering the wreckage of ships that once carried enslaved. Souls lost to the ocean depths. The Camargo, a ship that sank with over 500 enslaved men, women, and children, now resting at the bottom of the sea, their names forgotten. Jesus revealed a city of golden light, untouched by time. And I thought of the wreckage buried beneath the ocean, like the Camargo, the ship that once carried enslaved souls, hidden stories waiting to rise again. They were never meant to be forgotten, Jesus said. But the world rewrote their history. The truth has been buried, but it will rise again. I saw the waters shift, the lost voices of history beginning to resurface. I saw people waking up, realizing who they truly were, not just descendants of pain, but heirs of greatness. And I knew at that moment that history was not finished. What had been lost was now being found. The world was on the edge of an awakening, and nothing could stop it. The erasure of black history, the vision before me darkened. The golden city, the thriving civilization, the people of wisdom and strength, it all began to fade. It wasn't just time erasing them. It was something more deliberate. I watched as books were rewritten, stories altered, entire legacies stripped away. The proud leaders I had seen only moments before were now depicted as nameless, faceless laborers, reduced to a footnote in history. Their knowledge of the stars, medicine, and architecture was no longer theirs. It had been stolen, rebranded, and attributed to others. I turned to Jesus, my heart heavy. How could this happen? His gaze was sorrowful but firm. The enemy feared their power, so he buried their truth. The vision shifted again. I saw ships crossing the ocean, carrying stolen souls from their homeland to an uncertain fate. I saw their names erased, their histories rewritten, their very existence reduced to a narrative of oppression instead of the legacy of strength they had once carried. It was not just chains that bound them. It was deception. I thought of something happening right now in our world, the Smithsonian's Slave Wrecks Project. Archaeologists and historians are uncovering the remains of ships that carried enslaved people, ships that were meant to be forgotten. The Camargo, one of many lost vessels, now rests beneath the ocean floor, a silent witness to history. What I saw was not just a vision, it was the reality of what's been hidden. The Smithsonian's Slave Wrecks Project is uncovering shipwrecks that once carried human souls stolen from their homelands. Their history, just like what Jesus was showing me, was rewritten, buried, but never forgotten. The scene before me changed again. I saw generations of black children sitting in classrooms, learning history that had been carefully edited. I saw powerful voices being silenced, cultures being erased, spiritual connections being severed. Then, a new vision. I saw people waking up. I saw historians fighting to bring the truth to light, researchers piecing together the past that had been buried. I saw the names of the lost being spoken again, their stories being reclaimed. Jesus turned to me. The truth was never destroyed, only hidden, but now it is rising again. I felt it in my soul, the weight of what had been lost and the power of what was returning. This was more than history. This was a reckoning, a restoration. The world had tried to erase them, but their story was never truly lost, and soon the world would know the truth. From leaders to chainsaw moment, they were kings and queens. The next, they were shackled. The vision shifted before my eyes. The golden city, the thriving civilization, the proud leaders, it all vanished in an instant. In its place, I saw men, women and children bound in iron chains, their faces filled with confusion, fear, and sorrow. They were no longer walking in palaces of wisdom. They were being herded like cattle onto ships, stripped of their names, their dignity, their history. Their chains were not just metal. They were lies, designed to keep them from the truth. I watched as entire generations were stolen from their land, their knowledge of who they were erased with every mile they sailed. They were told they were nothing, that they had always been nothing, that their only purpose was to serve. Jesus stood beside me, his eyes filled with sorrow. The enemy feared them, he said, so he stole their truth. I saw the whips cracking against their backs, the tears streaming down their faces as families were torn apart. I saw the masters rewriting their stories, telling them they had no past, no greatness, no power, only servitude. But what struck me most was that the chains never truly broke them. Even in the fields, even under the weight of cruelty, I saw something in their eyes, a fire, a strength that refused to be extinguished. They carried something the enemy could never take, Jesus said. And then I understood. This was more than slavery. This was an attack on identity. A war not just for bodies, but for souls. The world remembers their suffering. But what the world has forgotten is their strength. The vision blurred again. I saw something beneath the waves, ships lost to history, their cargo not just of bodies, but of stolen legacies. I thought of the Slave Wrecks Project, the search for these sunken vessels, the effort to restore what was erased. The past was not lost. It had only been buried. Jesus turned to me, his voice steady and sure. But the time is coming when the truth will be revealed. The chains may have bound their bodies, but they could never bind their destiny. And what had been hidden for centuries was about to rise again. The spiritual battle, the vision didn't stop at the chains. There was something deeper at play, something beyond the physical suffering, beyond the history books, beyond the scars that had been passed down through generations. Jesus turned to me, his face solemn, his voice filled with both sorrow and urgency. This was never just about slavery. This was never just about oppression. This was war, a war for their souls. I saw it clearly now. The enemy had not only sought to break their bodies, he had sought to erase their identity, to sever their connection to the divine. They were not just taken from their land, Jesus said. They were taken from the truth of who they are. The vision shifted again. I saw black men and women standing tall, clothed in power, their spirits unshaken despite centuries of suffering. But then I saw another force at work, one that did not use whips or chains, but something far more dangerous. Lies. I saw how their history had been rewritten, how they had been told they were nothing. I saw how entire systems had been built to keep them in poverty, to keep them distracted, to keep them from realizing the power that had always been inside them. And then Jesus said something that sent chills through me. The enemy does not fear their pain. He fears their awakening, because when they remember who they are, the world will never be the same. At that moment, I saw it. I saw generations of black children growing up with false narratives, taught to see themselves through the lens of struggle rather than strength. I saw media shaping their identities, telling them what they could and could not be. I saw entire communities being infiltrated by systems designed to keep them bound, not by chains but by hopelessness. But then, I saw something else. I saw people waking up. I saw them rejecting the lies. I saw them stepping into their divine calling, reclaiming the wisdom that had been buried. The awakening has already begun, Jesus said, and the enemy is terrified. The vision zoomed out, and I saw the world itself shifting. Some were embracing the truth, stepping into their identity with boldness and power. But others were still blind, still trapped, still believing the deception that had been carefully crafted around them. There will be those who fight to keep them asleep, Jesus warned. There will be distractions, temptations, false promises, but those who seek the truth will find it. And then I understood. This wasn't just history. This wasn't just oppression. This was spiritual warfare, a battle that had been raging for centuries, a battle that was far from over. But the difference now? The chains were breaking, and nothing could stop what was coming next. Systemic lies and modern deception. The vision shifted again. I saw a world that looked familiar. Modern streets, towering buildings, flashing screens. But beneath the surface, I sensed something unsettling. It was as if a veil had been pulled over the eyes of millions, keeping them from seeing the truth. Jesus stood beside me, watching as the scene unfolded. The chains may be gone, he said, but the deception remains. I looked closer and saw the many ways this deception was still at work. I saw schools, classrooms filled with children being taught a history that had been carefully edited. The truth of who they were, where they came from, and what they had built was buried beneath a narrative designed to strip them of pride, of identity. I saw the media, images flashing across screens, shaping minds without people even realizing it. I saw black men and women portrayed as criminals, as entertainers, as victims, but rarely as leaders, as scholars, as visionaries. I saw the justice system, courtrooms where sentences were handed down unfairly, where entire communities were trapped in cycles of struggle, where the scales were not balanced as they were meant to be. I saw the churches, some standing firm in the truth, but others compromised, silent in the face of injustice, failing to remind people of who they truly were in God's eyes. And we see it even now, Jesus said, how education fails to teach true history, how entertainment distracts, how justice is often unjust. And then, like a light piercing through the darkness, I saw something else. I saw people searching, digging, For the truth. I saw historians uncovering lost artifacts, scholars rewriting history books, communities reclaiming their heritage. I thought of the Slave Wrecks Project, the researchers searching the ocean floor for ships that had once carried stolen souls. They weren't just finding old wood and rusted metal. They were finding names, stories, proof of a past that had been deliberately erased. The world tried to bury them, Jesus said, but I am bringing them back. I saw young black men and women looking past the false narratives and embracing their true identity. I saw families being restored, faith being renewed, history being rewritten, not by those who had erased it, but by those who had lived it. The deception is strong, Jesus said, but the truth is stronger. At that moment, I knew this battle wasn't just about the past. It was about right now. It was about waking up, and the awakening had already begun. Jesus' call for awakening. Jesus turned to me, his expression filled with both love and urgency. The weight of his words pressed into my spirit before he even spoke. The time is short, he said. The enemy works not with chains, but with deception. And now truth is rising, just like those sunken ships, just like the voices that will no longer be silenced. I felt it deep within me. The world was shifting. A battle was taking place, not one fought with weapons, but with truth against lies, light against darkness. Jesus extended his hand, and suddenly the vision changed. I saw people waking up, realizing that what they had been told for generations was not the full story. I saw scholars uncovering records once thought lost, families reclaiming their heritage, churches standing boldly in the face of opposition. I saw young men and women breaking free from the deception that had been placed upon them since birth. But then, I saw something else. The enemy fought harder. I saw distractions flooding the world, entertainment, false movements, promises of comfort that led only to deeper chains. I saw entire systems designed to keep people from asking questions, from seeking the truth, from realizing their divine identity. And then Jesus' voice rang out again, cutting through the noise. Tell them to prepare. The awakening is here, but they must choose to see it. I saw two paths laid before the world, one leading to truth, to freedom, to spiritual restoration, the other leading to complacency, to deception, to captivity of the mind. Jesus turned. To me, his gaze unwavering. Go, tell them what you have seen. I trembled. How could I, just one person, deliver such a message? But before I could speak, Jesus answered the question forming in my heart. Your job is not to convince. Your job is to speak. Those who have ears to hear will hear. Those who seek truth will find it. The light around me began to shift, pulling me away from this sacred space. The vision blurred, and suddenly I was back. I gasped for air, my body jerking awake in a hospital bed. The sound of beeping monitors filled the room. Nurses rushing to my side, my family's relieved cries echoing around me. But nothing was the same, because I had seen, I had heard, and now I had to tell the world. The coming revival. The vision changed. Again I saw flames, bright, consuming, unstoppable, not of destruction but of revival. Fire spreading from person to person, from city to city, from generation to generation. It was the light of awakening, of truth, of faith rekindled in hearts that had once been forgotten. Jesus stood beside me, his expression filled with purpose. This fire has burned before, he said, but now it will burn brighter than ever. And then I saw history itself unfold before me. I saw the civil rights movement, men and women marching with courage, their voices lifted in faith and defiance, knowing they were standing for something greater than themselves. I saw churches filled with song, with prayers, with the unshakable belief that justice was not just a hope, but a promise. I saw leaders rise, not because the world appointed them, but because God had called them. I saw Harriet Tubman guiding her people through darkness toward freedom. I saw Frederick Douglass speaking truth against oppression. I saw Martin Luther King Jr. proclaiming that justice would roll down like waters and righteousness like a mighty stream. And then today, I saw people standing in churches, in the streets, in their homes, raising their hands, lifting their voices, declaring that the time of awakening had come. From the civil rights movement to today's fight for truth, Every generation has carried this flame. Now it is time to set the world ablaze. I saw families being restored, chains of addiction and oppression breaking. I saw young black men and women no longer searching for their identity, but walking boldly in their divine purpose. I saw pastors preaching without fear, communities coming together not under political banners, but under the banner of truth. I saw a movement not led by governments, not by institutions, not by celebrities, but by the people, by those who had once been silenced but would no longer remain quiet. The first shall be last and the last shall be first, Jesus said. I watched as the world shifted. Those who had been ignored, dismissed, and told they were less than were rising, not in anger, not in vengeance, but in authority, in truth, in faith. The revival was here, and nothing, no deception, no opposition, no power on earth, could stop what God had already begun. The vision darkened. The revival was spreading, but so was something else, something more dangerous than chains, more deceptive than any lie before it. Jesus' voice was steady, but there was urgency in his tone. The enemy will not stand by. And watch this awakening. He will strike back. Suddenly I saw it, a world promising unity, peace, and progress, but at a cost. I saw people blindly accepting false truths, willing to trade their faith for comfort, their identity for acceptance. The world will offer false peace, false unity, false truth. But those who seek real truth, those who hear this call, will rise. Beyond deception, I saw movements claiming to fight for justice but secretly working to divide. I saw voices that once spoke boldly, now silenced by fear. I saw a world that no longer needed whips or chains, because people were now willingly enslaving themselves to deception. And then I saw the divide. One side stood strong in faith, holding on to the truth no matter the cost. The other had given in, choosing comfort over conviction, choosing to blend in rather than stand apart. The time of choosing is here, Jesus said. I saw families torn apart, some embracing the awakening, others rejecting it. I saw churches, once houses of truth, now compromised, preaching messages that pleased the world but ignored the word. I saw people losing jobs, friendships, even their lives because they refused to bow to the lies. But then, I saw something even more powerful. I saw God providing for his people, protecting, strengthening, guiding. I saw miracles breaking out in places that the world had abandoned. I saw the faithful standing firm, unshaken, even as the world turned against them. Jesus looked at me. Tell them to prepare. The vision shifted once more, and I saw the final deception, a system designed to silence, to control, to replace faith with submission. And yet, even as darkness spread, the light continued to grow. Those who chose truth, who refused to bow, were not lost. They were rising. I turned to Jesus, my heart pounding. What can they do? I asked. His response was clear, unshakable. Seek me. Stand firm. Do not be deceived. Then, just as suddenly as it began, the vision faded, and I was back. The battle had already begun. The question now was, who would be ready? Returning to life and the urgency of the message. A jolt of air filled my lungs. I gasped, my body convulsing, the sharp beeping of machines piercing through the fog that had surrounded me. My chest rose and fell in frantic, uneven bursts as my eyes flickered open. I was back. The fluorescent lights above me felt harsh, too bright, too real. My body ached, heavy with the weight of what I had seen. Nurses rushed to my side, voices overlapping, relief, shock, confusion. My family wept beside me, their hands gripping mine, whispering prayers of gratitude, but I barely heard them, because I had been sent back for a reason. The visions, the warnings, the truth that had been revealed to me, it all burned inside me. Like a fire that could not be contained, I had seen the deception. I had seen the awakening. I had seen what was coming, and I knew beyond any doubt that my life would never be the same again. As I lay there, my pulse still erratic, my breath still shaky, I realized something. Jesus had given me a choice. To stay, silent or to speak, to pretend this was just a dream, or to declare the truth no matter the cost. And so, I am telling you now, I came back for one reason: to tell you. If you are hearing this, it is not by accident. The awakening is now. Will you see it? Will you rise? If this message spoke to you, don't keep it to yourself. Share it. Let others hear the truth. And if you want to continue exploring powerful revelations like this, make sure to subscribe to Bible Pathways and turn on notifications. Join us in uncovering the deeper truths of faith, history, and prophecy. Like this video so more people can find it, because now more than ever, the world needs to wake up.